So, we love a story about claiming who we are. Sometimes the moment comes quietly, other times it comes roaring like the anthem of the show The Greatest Showman. I don't know if you've seen the video, but there's this wonderful recording of them practicing, the actors, of practicing this song. And they worked themselves into this extraordinary frenzy. And the backstory I had heard was that Hugh Jackman had just had surgery on his nose, and he was prohibited from singing in this because he was afraid he was going to, tear a stitch or something. And in the video, you see him holding back as they're practicing, and ultimately he ends up joining in, but very understated. But they work themselves into the frenzy, and they end up with this chorus of "This is me. I'm brave, I'm bruised, I am who I am meant to be." And it's a great moment in which the bearded lady in the show expresses that this is who she is. And it's a fantastic moment. It's a song about visibility, about refusing to shrink or hide, about standing fully in the light of yourself no matter what the world says. That's why it resonates so deeply with so many people. It captures the universal desire to be the universal longing to be seen and to be known. That's why we all love coming-of-age stories. They show us the journey from uncertainty to self-recognition, from masks and survival strategies to a moment of truth. We watch the characters stumble and struggle and sometimes fail and then finally claim their identity, to which I would recommend a fantastic book that I'm now finishing. Hopefully by the end of today I will have finished it, called The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hill. And it's a beautiful coming-of-age story. These stories remind us of becoming yourself is rarely instantaneous. It's earned, it's lived, and it is hard-won. And that is the story of Joseph. In many ways, the story of Joseph is a coming-of-age story. After years of betrayal, of hardship and survival, he finally steps forward and he declares, "Ani Yosef, ha'od avi chai." I'm Joseph. Is my father still alive? It's not a boast. It's not a claim of status. It's the naming of self that he has carried, the essence that he could be erased even by slavery. False accusations of power have fallen short. Just as the song from The Greatest Showman says, Joseph claims, "This is me. This is who I am. I am whom I was meant to be." And in claiming, he begins the work of reconciliation both with his family and ultimately with himself. And that's where this week's Parashat brings us, into the profound moment when identity is fully named aloud and the journey of self-revelation becomes visible for all to see. It's not merely a revelation of information, it is an arrival. Rashi tells us that the brothers are unable to respond. V'lo yachlu echav anot oto mipnei habusha. That his brothers couldn't respond because of how embarrassed they were. Truth, once spoken aloud, destabilizes everyone in the room, including the one who says it. And then Ramban notices something essential. Joseph doesn't say, "I'm the ruler of Egypt." He doesn't say, "I'm successful." He doesn't even use the name Pharaoh gave him. Early in the Torah, we saw Vayikra Paro Shem Yosef Tzofnat Paneach, that Pharaoh last week gave him a new name. He said, "You're now Tzofnat Paneach," a royal name, a powerful name, a name that signifies status and acceptance in the society. And yet Joseph discards that name completely. Ramban, Nachmanides teaches, Hiskir Shemo Asher Karalo Aviv. He remembers the name his father gave him. No matter what others call you, no matter what titles you earn, no matter how flattering or functional those names may be, your true name is the one that aligns with your deepest self. Pharaoh could rename Joseph. The world could redefine Joseph. Survival could reshape Joseph. But identity is not bestowed by power. It is reclaimed through truth. Identity is not bestowed by power. It is reclaimed by truth. Joseph teaches that fulfillment begins not when the world finally gets us right, but when we refuse to forget who we were before the world told us who we ought to be. So let's slow down and look at the verse one word at a time. Ani, I. The courage to speak in the first person, not hiding behind the role or function. Joseph, Yosef, the original self, the one God meant us to be. The name spoken by his father, the self before he ever went to Egypt. Ha'od Avichai, is my father alive? And the Sforno offers us something extraordinarily beautiful and deep. Lo sha'al ladat. He doesn't ask in order to know. Ella livate ga'agua v'tsa'ar. He asks in order to express his longing and his pain. Joseph is asking us, who is the source of who he is? What is his moral inheritance? What is his relational self? Still lives within him long after everything he has endured. In other words, did I survive all of this and remain true to myself? The Torah lingers on Joseph's tears. Vayitain et kolo bivchi. He raised his voice in weeping. And then Ramban explains, Habechi al hashanim she'avdu ve'al hatzar shelo yashuv. He's weeping for the years that they lost. All those years together they could have spent together. And he cries because of the suffering that cannot be undone. Ramban recognizes there must be healing in this moment, but it doesn't erase history. The Sfat Emet teaches that Ani Yosef is the moment of emet, of truth that arrives suddenly. Ha'emet mitgaleh birega echad kishe'ein adam yachol od lastir atzmo. Ein od lastir atzmo. Truth reveals itself in a single moment, says the Sfat Emet, when a person can no longer hide from themselves. And then the Kotzker Rebbe teaches something so beautiful. Im ani mipnei she'ata az eineni ani. That if I am myself because you are who you are, then I'm not really truly myself. Identity built on approval, on fear, or survival is identity that is fragile. Identity built on truth, however, is steady. Most of us experience moments like Joseph's, not as grand revelations, but as flashes, brief moments of calm, of alignment, when we say or do something and think, now that was really me. That was my authentic self. The challenge is not in noticing these moments. The challenge is in trusting those moments. Joseph's work after Ani Yosef is to live from that truth, to let the moments become a pattern. So how do we do that? I'll offer you these suggestions. Notice the calm, not the drama. Identity often feels quiet. Second, name yourself simply. 2 words can be enough. Separate survival from self. When once protected, you may now be confined by you. Separate your survival from who you are. Return to your source. Ask what formed you and whether it still lives in you. Practice before you perform. The Mishnah teaches, Da lifnei mi ata omed, know before whom you stand. We have it written on the chapel wall. But hidden inside that teaching is another quieter question. Mi ata. It says, Da lifnei mi ata omed. Who are you? Who is the one standing here? Joseph's moment of Ani Yosef is both personal and theological. Identity is named aloud after years of concealment. Recognition, hakara, becomes the pathway to healing. To live a fulfilled life is to be endlessly confident. It's to be increasingly aligned. To let flashes of truth become habits of honesty. To stand before God not as we think we should, but as who we really are. Finally, brave enough to know. So I pray that we all have the courage, again and again, to answer the question, Mi ata, who are you? Shabbat shalom. We continue with the Chatzi Kaddish, page 184. Yitgadal, v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalemadi v'rachirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon, v'yomechon, ובחיי לכל בית ישראל בגאלה ובזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבא מבורך לעולם לעולמי עולמיו יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה לעילם מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה